Well, look at what is happening in the wholesaling industry. 2 more states are cracking down on wholesaling. This time the state of Kansas and the state of Missouri. And just like I predicted and have been discussing here on my channel, the wholesaling industry is under attack, the domino effect is happening, and it's only a matter of time before laws and regulations come to a city or state near you. On this video, find out all of the details, what it means for you as a wholesaler or aspiring wholesaler, what you should do differently right now, as well as how you can get involved in protecting and preserving the wholesaling industry. All that and more coming up.
This video is brought to you by 10K Club, a program that pays you $10,000 for finding ugly houses. Learn more at my10kcheck.com.
If you're new here, I'm Jerry Norton. I make millions of dollars a year wholesaling and flipping houses. And here on my YouTube channel, I show you how to do the same. So if you want to be a flipping genius like me and live your dream life, subscribe to my channel and watch my videos. Now, if you're not aware of what's been going on over the past year or so in the wholesaling industry, I'll quickly bring you up to speed. But if you want to really understand the issues at hand, I've done several videos where I break down in detail each of the different cities and states that have passed laws and regulations, as well as several videos explaining why this is happening and what wholesalers need to do differently as a result. Now, I created a playlist here on my channel with all of these videos. If you're serious about building a sustainable wholesaling business, I highly recommend you watch those videos. I'll put the link to that playlist in the description box below and you can watch it later. Wholesaling houses used to be an obscure technique that investors used as an alternative to buying properties. The main objective was to buy the property and wholesaling it was plan B. Now, thanks to educators like me, it's a full-blown industry with active wholesalers in every single market across the country. The business model is 1, find a motivated seller willing to sell their unwanted distressed property. 2, secure that property at a discounted price using a written contract. And then 3, wholesale that property to a cash buyer for a profit. Now, I teach how to do this extensively here on my channel. Today, wholesaling by and large has become a mainstream business practice, and while it serves a vital role in the real estate market, just like every emerging industry, once big enough, government consumer protection agencies and regulators step in and regulate as a means to protect the public, and usually special interest groups get involved as well, as you'll see. Now, just in the past year or so, regulation has happened at both the state level, such as Illinois and Oklahoma, and also in several major cities, including Philadelphia and Atlanta. And I believe the domino effect has started, and within the next few years, most, if not all cities and states will institute laws and regulations against wholesaling houses. That is, if we don't organize and do something about it. More on that later. But first, 2 more states have wholesaling on the chop block. An article just came out published by the Kansas City Star about plans in progress in both Kansas and Missouri to impose laws against wholesaling. Earlier this year, the state of Kansas attempted to pass a bill that would require wholesalers to follow the same licensing requirements as real estate agents. That is what the state of Illinois did. Now, that would mean to wholesale a house in Kansas, you would need a real estate license and adhere to the same rules and regulations as agents. Fortunately, the bill didn't pass, but there are plans to try again. Eric Weisner, the director of the Kansas Real Estate Commission, said they are going to introduce a similar bill in the next legislative session. Now, Weisner said, "We want them," referring to wholesalers, "to either get a license or stop what they're doing." And it's not just the state of Kansas. The state of Missouri also is exploring laws for wholesaling. So far, advocates for regulation have been unsuccessful with the Missouri Consumer Protection Agency. The agency said they aren't going to investigate wholesalers as of now because there hasn't been enough consumer complaints. But due to several real estate agents complaining about wholesalers, the Missouri Realtors Association held discussions last legislative session to discuss taking action against wholesalers, but came up short-handed for now. The point is, it's only a matter of time. Get ready, regulation is coming to Kansas and Missouri. The problem is, and the concern I have, is that without proper representation, wholesaling can get over-regulated, which is also happening. Stay to the end of this video because I want to talk to you about how you can have a voice and what you can do to help protect wholesaling. So who are these anti-wholesalers that are leading this charge against wholesalers? And what are their issues and concerns? To get a better understanding, let's take a closer look at this recent article by the Kansas City Star. Now, this article gives a lot of insight, and I believe wholesalers everywhere should pay close attention and understand what the arguments are against wholesaling. First and foremost, the biggest push to regulate wholesaling is coming from real estate agents and specifically the National Association of Realtors, or NAR. You see, NAR and many agents are threatened by wholesalers and want to eliminate competition. If wholesaling is banned, sellers will be forced to list and sell properties with agents. If wholesalers are forced to get licensed like agents, then thousands of wholesalers in every market will fall under the broker-agent model, ultimately funneling millions of dollars back to NAR. Now, while I do agree that wholesalers should follow best practices and adhere to a code of ethics and have some oversight, that's not what this is about. The movement by NAR to shut down wholesalers is nothing more than a money grab. And it just so happens that I happen to have in possession NAR's official playbook to ban wholesaling. And I'm not going to tell you how many lives were sacrificed to get this. Just know that great lengths were taken to get it. Right here are NAR's secret plans to infiltrate the real estate market and take down wholesaling. And I'm about to reveal their secrets on YouTube. And don't underestimate how powerful NAR is, collecting $260 million annually from its 1.5 million members. No trade group in America spends more on lobbying than NAR. All right, so let's take a look at NAR's playbook. There are three major tactics that NAR uses. Tactic number one is to convince everyone that wholesaling is the same as brokering, and brokering real estate requires a real estate license. If NAR can persuade regulators that wholesalers operate the same as agents, then of course they should follow the same rules, regulations, and licensing requirements as agents. The Kansas City Star article said, wholesalers say by buying and selling contracts, they are not actually buying properties. But real estate agents say that's a distinction with little difference. Wholesalers market their businesses like agents, and they market homes they have under contract just like agents. Now, the article cited a local Kansas City agent who said it's not fair that he had to take classes, pass tests, and has to maintain a license. Meanwhile, wholesalers practice real estate without a license. So if NAR can convince regulators that the assignment of contract method used to wholesale houses is nothing more than a legal loophole, and wholesalers are no different than agents, then passing legislation is much easier. Tactic number two in NAR's playbook to take down wholesaling is to persuade everyone that wholesaling is illegal and even fraudulent. The article states, unlike real estate agents who are regulated by a state board, wholesalers often evade any government oversight. Another agent was quoted in the article saying, the first and most important thing licensed agents learn is their moral, legal, and fiduciary duties to the buyers and sellers they represent. An unlicensed wholesaler has none of those obligations. Now, there are three major arguments NAR uses to support their case that wholesalers operate illegally. First is that wholesalers don't provide proper disclosure and even misrepresent themselves and their role in the transaction. That wholesalers claim to be cash buyers when they clearly don't have the financial means or the intention to actually buy the properties, which anti-wholesalers argue is lying and even constitutes fraud. Now, the second illegal thing that wholesalers are accused of doing is marketing a property for sale that they do not own or have proper permission from the seller, which by law is considered brokering a property, and one must be licensed to do so. And the third illegal thing wholesalers do is intentionally back out of contracts with sellers when they can't find a buyer to wholesale them to. Now, the argument is that wholesalers create escape clauses that let them easily back out of contracts without any repercussions, often leaving the seller high and dry. The article quoted a lobbyist for NAR, Sam Licklider, who said, some wholesalers have earned a reputation for walking away from contracts if they are unable to sell them to another buyer in a short manner of time. Sometimes that's because they're asking too much. Oftentimes the home may need more work than investors want to take on. Then the seller has to start all over again, he said. That's not right. That's a bad deal. So if NAR can make a case that wholesalers operate illegally, then passing legislation is much easier. Okay, tactic number three in NAR's playbook to ban wholesaling is to attack wholesalers collectively as predatory. that wholesalers as a group take advantage of poor people and people of color and swindle them into selling their properties, and by doing so, they steal unsuspecting homeowners' hard-earned equity. The article actually reached out to Alan Dom, city councilman who led the legislation against wholesalers in Philadelphia. Regarding what he said in Philly, Dom said, "We felt that the homeowners who sold these homes didn't understand the value of their homes and that the wealth, which was really theirs, was being taken away from their families. We knew that wasn't right." So these dirty, rotten wholesalers are stealing from families. You know what's interesting? The article failed to mention that Alan Dom just so happens to be a big-time real estate broker in the city, but I'm sure it had nothing to do with him trying to eliminate competition. And Alan Dom, the selfless public servant that he is, so graciously offered to share the legislation passed in Philly with the Missouri Commission. Now, the article further states that some real estate agents see more regulations of wholesalers as one way to protect neighborhoods. Now, this underhanded move to demonize wholesalers collectively was the exact strategy the city of Atlanta used to justify passing laws against wholesaling. Even though no proof whatsoever was ever produced, Atlanta city officials claim that wholesalers as a whole force homeowners against their will to sell their homes and maliciously steal their equity. So if NAR can show that the public, especially the poor, need protected from these evil predatory wholesalers, then passing legislation is much easier. Now, I will say this article by the Kansas City Star wasn't completely biased towards wholesalers. They did quote the biggest and most trusted advocate for wholesalers. Let me see who that was. Oh, Jerry Norton. That's me. Now, the authors of the article did not contact me directly for input, which I would have been happy to do, probably smart on their part. Instead, they quoted an isolated clip from one of my YouTube videos. Of all the things I've said around this topic, here's what they quoted in their article. "It seems like every time I turn around, there is another law passed cracking down on wholesaling real estate." YouTube host Jerry Norton, who teaches how to flip contracts online, told his followers in October. Regulation is coming, and it's coming fast. On his YouTube channel, Flipping Mastery TV, Norton teaches others how to find properties, get them under contract for under market value, and flip them for a profit. He rejects the idea that wholesalers are taking advantage of sellers. Most of the homes they purchase, he said, are unfit for the retail marketplace because of their conditions. Now, all of that is true. Then they took a quote from a video where I was rebuking how ridiculous it was that Atlanta accused wholesalers of being predatory and that homeowners needed protected from them. The article quoted me saying, "What an insult to humanity to think that a seller is so incapable of making decisions for himself. If the seller is smart enough to buy a property, he is smart enough to sell a property," he said. "And if he thinks he can get more for his house, he will. It's asinine to think that a wholesaler forces or coerces a homeowner to sell against his will. No one is putting a gun to the seller's head and saying, 'Sell me your property at 50% of its current value or else.'" And yes, I said that. The point I was making is that Atlanta completely misrepresented wholesalers with their unfounded, unproven, ridiculous accusations. But honestly, I'm really glad I've been ranting and raving about this on YouTube because it's a little bit harder for news organizations to totally ignore the other side. Okay, so what can you do and what can I do to protect and preserve the wholesaling industry? I have 3 suggestions. Suggestion number 1 is to operate with integrity. Find out what the rules are in your state for practicing real estate. The big things are, don't tell sellers you're a cash buyer if you don't actually have the cash or intend to buy the property. Be honest upfront and disclose your intentions. Don't market a property for sale that you don't own or have proper permission from the seller. And please, for the love of God, stop locking up properties with sellers and then intentionally backing out when you can't find a buyer. Not only is that not cool to sellers, but nothing will get regulators and consumer protection agencies fired up more than doing that. Don't give anyone a reason to call you predatory. Suggestion number 2 is an easy one and solves all of your problems. Stop doing the assignment of contract technique. Now, I know that's the best method, but it opens up the door for scrutiny. Instead, perform on the contract, buy the property, and then resell it right away to a cash buyer. Known as a double closing, this eliminates all of the complaints against wholesalers. Now, I even started a fund where I'll give you 100% of the money for your double closing deals. I put together a free training that explains how it works. To learn more, just go to usejerryscash.com. Okay, finally, suggestion number 3 is to join me in officially organizing as an industry. I've been working with my lawyer and I've reached out to the top educators and influencers to rally together to help me form an official 501c3 nonprofit trade association. It's called the National Real Estate Wholesalers Association, or NREWA for short, and we need your support. Let's unify as an industry. Let's create standardized training, best practices, and a code of ethics. Let's demand a seat at the table with regulators and consumer protection agencies so we have a voice. Let's stand up against unfair regulation from state governments, local boards, and anti-wholesaler agencies. Let's fight back from unwarranted accusations that wholesalers are predatory. Let's become a force to reckon with. If we don't, NAR and other special interest groups will steamroll us out of existence. They can't ignore us if we unite together. If you're willing to pledge your support, go to nrewa.org to join the movement. Now, we'll notify you once we launch with details about how to become an official member, as well as benefits for joining and other ways to get involved. There is power in numbers, and it's going to take each and every one of us to preserve, protect, and empower the wholesaling industry. So again, go to nrewa.org and pledge your support. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.